Prince Harry tells ITV he hopes to repair the rift in the royal family, but sees no sign of that happening yet.
They've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile. I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back.
So what chance of a return to more cordial royal relations in the year of King Charles's coronation? We'll look at what Prince Harry's latest public comments mean for the royal family. Also tonight, a national scandal, how senior doctors are describing the potentially fatal delays at A&Es across the country. Fans from Brazil and around the world prepare to say a personal farewell to Pele, the greatest footballer of them all. Underdogs Rangers hold leaders Celtic to a draw in the Old Firm derby. And he just can't keep away. Thor the Walrus's tour of the UK's coastal hotspots continues in Blythe.
This is ITV News with Rageh Omar.
Good evening. Prince Harry has told ITV that he wants his father and brother back, saying he wants to be part of a family, not an institution. But in a trailer for an interview which airs on Sunday, the Prince tells Tom Bradby that senior royals have shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile after the Duke and Duchess aired their grievances in a Netflix documentary series. Our royal editor Chris Shipp reports.
When William and Harry and their wives appeared together in September following the death of the Queen, many suspected it was not the start of a reconciliation for the brothers, rather a forced show of unity. And now Harry has confirmed that relations between him and the royal family are as bad as they ever were.
I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back.
The clips from next weekend's ITV interview are very short, just 20 seconds in total, but enough time for Harry to claim that his family, in his opinion at least, are not willing to find a way through.
They've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile. They feel as though it's better to keep us somehow as the villains.
Harry's interview will be broadcast just 2 days before his book Spare is published, memoirs which are expected to contain a potentially explosive set of claims about his family.
I want a family, not an institution.
Harry has done one other interview. It is for the American network CBS. In a clip released by them today, he once again accuses his family of leaking negative stories about him and Meghan.
Every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. When we're being told for the last 6 years, we can't put a statement out to protect you, but you do it for other members of the family, there becomes a point when silence is betrayal.
Just as Buckingham Palace didn't respond after 6 hours of Harry and Meghan's Netflix series, nor have they responded today to this very short clip from ITV. The Palace knew the start of 2023 would be dominated by some potentially difficult questions in Harry's book, but now they have 2 interviews to contend with on either side of the Atlantic.
Here we see Harry reaching out emotionally, suggesting that he wants his father and his brother back. So on that level, perhaps a scope for reconciliation, but no contrition on his part. And all of this now builds towards, the prospect of the gathering of the family, of the firm at the coronation in May. So this couldn't have come at a worse time.
We have, of course, already heard from Harry and Meghan in that Oprah Winfrey interview and throughout their 6-part Netflix series. But this new programme appears to be the first time that the Duke of Sussex has allowed his claims to be properly challenged.
It never needed to be this way.
Nor, many might say, did Harry need to give another interview. But he has. Chris Shipp, ITV News.
Senior doctors have described fatal delays in emergency care as a national scandal, with pressure continuing to mount on NHS services. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine says up to 500 people are dying each week as a result of problems at overcrowded A&E departments. The government disputes that figure, saying £500 million has been invested to free up capacity. Martin Stew reports.
This is my mum.
John Martin's 87-year-old mum has dementia and chronic breathing problems.
She's certainly nowhere near ready to come home.
On Boxing Day, she had to wait for 5 hours in an ambulance, one of 15 queuing outside an overflowing and overworked A&E.
I swear a third world country would be better prepared than this. I heard the nurses say, well, we're going to have to prioritise who has the oxygen and who doesn't. So does that mean who lives or dies?
The Royal College of Emergency Medicine says emergency care across the country is in a complete state of crisis, with up to 500 people a week dying due to delays.
It's unquestionably a matter of life and death. We cannot provide safe and effective care in corridors or in car parks in overcrowded emergency departments. It really is a national scandal, the number of patients who are coming to harm at the moment.
The government says easing pressure on A&Es is a top priority. They've invested $500 million to free up bed capacity, but NHS bosses admit that's unlikely to help in time for this winter.
We've got around 9,500 people who've got COVID. We've got about 3,750 people who have flu. We've got 12,000 people who are medically fit to discharge, but because of the pressures in social care, we can't discharge them. But as ever, NHS staff are working incredibly hard to ensure that we provide the best possible care.
Back in Devon, John is visiting every lunchtime, worried staff are too busy to feed his mum.
Someone needs to fix it.
He doesn't blame the staff, but the system.
They're trying so hard to make it work, but they haven't got the resources.
With more strikes planned by nurses and ambulance workers this month, winter pressures show little sign of easing yet. Martin Stew, ITV News.
3 people and a dog have died after a fire broke out at a hotel in Perth, Scotland. It happened at around 5 a.m. this morning, with more than 60 firefighters called to help bring it under control. The 3 people were confirmed dead at the scene, and a small number of guests have been evacuated to another hotel. Brazilian football fans are saying their final farewells to Pele after his coffin was carried into the football stadium of his former club. After lying in state for 24 hours, Pele's coffin will be carried through the streets of Santos before tomorrow's funeral. Key figures from the footballing world, as well as thousands of fans, have been paying their respects at his open casket, as Steve Scott reports.
In the darkness, Pele's hearse illuminated. Fireworks to celebrate a great life and to mark his homecoming. From first light they came, thousands upon thousands, queuing quietly under a scorching Santos sun. However long their wait, and it stretched to many hours, this was no chore but an honour. Just to be here was to be part of his extraordinary story. Locals old enough to remember when Pele actually played here, taking it all in.
What does he mean to Santos and to Brazil?
I think for Santos everything, you know, for the city and for the Brazilian football and for our country. Pele was the first Brazilian to be known worldwide, you know.
He was one of the greatest football players, and to honor his death.
Pele's widow and the rest of his family led the mourners today. The most powerful man in football told me about an ambitious plan in Pele's memory.
We will ask as well every country in the world to name one of their stadiums, one of their football fields, with the name of Pele everywhere in the world, in every country of the world. Because it's important that children in 20 years, in 50 years, in 100 years from now, they remember who Pele was.
Inside, alone with their thoughts, almost within touching distance of a man in Brazil they call the king.
They will keep passing by through the night until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then Pele's coffin will be driven through the streets of Santos for the final time, ahead of a private family funeral.
Candela and Mateus took 10 hours to get here and queued for another 4, but will never forget the precious seconds with a man they'd previously only admired from a distance.
Never had seen him, never seen him play, never seen him in person. That was the first time.
You're very emotional.
It's very difficult.
Pele's final resting place is a 14-storey high cemetery just a stone's throw from the stadium, and from tomorrow a Brazilian landmark with an even greater significance. Steve Scott, ITV News, Santos.
In Rome, mourners have also been gathering to see former Pope Benedict XVI as his body lies in state at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. The former Pope became the first in 600 years to resign as head of the Catholic Church when he stepped down in 2013. Rachel Younger reports.
As a grey dawn breaks over the Vatican, the queuing begins. And throughout the day, and despite the damp, there's no end to it. Thousands snaking across St. Peter's Square, the famous piazza named after the very first Pope, for a final moment with the 265th to serve here. Inside the Basilica, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI now lies in state within an open casket. Psalms are sung for him in Latin before Italy's President and Prime Minister pause to pay their respects. After the dignitaries, the devoted, the committed and the curious coming to say their goodbyes to a man who died aged 95 on New Year's Eve, having been the first Pope in 400 years to resign from the role almost a decade ago. Some offering up a prayer for his soul, others immortalising the moment with a camera phone, perhaps to share it with those who can't come themselves, to mourn a Pope whose fiercely conservative views inspired both concern and devotion.
I would say that it was this. He was not afraid to face the questions of today. He was very open in that regard.
It's a beautiful experience, but also it's humbling for me, as a priest, to get to have this experience in Rome.
The doors of St. Peter's will remain open to mourners for 2 more days, before Benedict's successor, Pope Francis, presides over his funeral on Thursday. Rachel Younger, ITV News.
Tennis legend Martina Navratilova has been diagnosed with 2 forms of cancer. The 66-year-old has confirmed she has throat and breast cancer. Both diseases are said to be in their early stages with a good chance of recovery. The 18-time Grand Slam winner was previously treated for breast cancer back in 2010. Ukraine says around 400 Russian soldiers have been killed in a missile strike in the occupied Donetsk region. Russia disputes the figure, saying 63 troops died when a barracks was in the city of Makiivka was hit by US-made rockets on New Year's Day. To football, and in the New Year Old Firm clash at Ibrox, Rangers were denied victory by rival Celtic. Rangers came from behind to lead 2-1 in front of a passionate Ibrox crowd, including this spectacular goal from Ryan Kent before the league leaders got a late goal to draw 2-2. Celtic do remain 9 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership. And finally, Scarborough's New Year fireworks display was cancelled 2 days ago because of concerns for a wandering walrus who had arrived and settled in the town. But 2 days later, the animal nicknamed Thor has been spotted more than 70 miles north in Blythe. Unsurprisingly, the walrus is attracting a lot of attention on the next stop of its coastal tour, but people are being urged to leave Thor in peace. Oh, good luck to him. And that's it for now. I'll be back with the late news at 10:10. Until then, have a very good evening. From all of us, goodbye.
It's a cold and wet outlook, with some heavy downpours throughout the day. Heinz Big Soup sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you and a very happy new year. I hope 2023 has started well for you so far. Certainly lots of sunshine around across much of the UK through today to get us off to a good start. However, the January weather is definitely starting to kick in again tomorrow. Further spells of rain this week, windy at times, quite mild I think over the next few days, but turning less mild and temperatures more like average by the end of the week. So this is what's going on. Really, it's a very simple story. We've had a ridge of high pressure today, which gave us the fairly dry and bright conditions, but that moves off the scene. And then really it's just rain-bearing Atlantic frontal systems lining up in the Atlantic. Some heavy rain at times You can see that squeeze on the isobars as well, indicating over the next few days some fairly windy conditions. And even by the end of the week, we've still got those bands of rain moving in across the UK. So something a little bit drier and brighter, then some rain, and then something drier and brighter again. It's really just very typical January weather. Let's get the detail then. As we look ahead to this evening and overnight, we start off with a cold, clear sort of picture. Fairly widespread frost across much of Scotland. By the time we get to the early hours, though, the first Atlantic frontal system starts to approach from the west, so bringing patchy rain in and a rise in temperatures as well. But for much of the night, it is going to be quite a cold picture, particularly across those central and eastern areas. Then we look ahead to tomorrow. That system continues to move west to east across the UK, so rain for a time, then something a little bit drier, and then the next lump of rain starts moving in. A weather warning in force there across Scotland. That's it. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Heinz Big Soup sponsors ITV National Weather.